What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. For some, it will be good. For others, it's a heartbreaking day. And it's a bit different nowadays, as the New Orleans Saints roster will be cut down from 90 to 53. A bloodletting of about 50% of the guys. Nick is here to answer all of our questions. Nick, what's up, man? How we feeling?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing very well. Sure you're happy to be back home. It is trim day. Before we get into...
Oh, yeah, he's not in a hotel room.
I know. Look at that. He's in those beautiful neworleans.football studios. Which, by the way, guys, sign up for neworleans.football. It's a site that I've been subscribed to for years. Him, Mike Triplett, Brandon Thompson do a really good job of covering this team inside and out, give you all of your inside information. Before we get to the roster, who makes it, who doesn't, because there were some interesting consensus picks in y'all's pieces yesterday, Nick. We're through the preseason. My biggest takeaway is that, unfortunately, the O-line is every bit the Achilles heel that we thought it was going to be. What is your single biggest takeaway with this New Orleans Saints team through an entire preseason camp?
It's that. I mean, the O-line, terrified, frightened, concerned. All those words. Pick one, whatever one you want to use. I think it kind of describes the situation a little bit. I don't feel good about right tackle. I personally don't see how Penning plays week one. I just don't see how you make that decision. I think it has to be Uli Udoh. Credit to Penning. Like, I think this was probably the best game he played of the preseason. I think you did see progress probably week to week, just not enough. Like, it's just not enough to get there. And like, maybe week 7, week 6, week 4, week 12, he gets there. But I think on, September 8th? Like, I don't see it. I don't see it being there in whatever it is, 2 weeks. I just don't think he's going to be ready to play. I think you have to go to Udoh. Lucas Patrick still scares me, but I think he's going to start. I saw a couple things from Fuaga in this game that were a little bit concerning too, and I think he'll ultimately be fine, but I am curious to see, hey, what's this going to look like when teams are watching him and then they're game planning for him? And, we're going to probably see a few more warts than we've seen so far, but I thought there were a few in this game. I know PFF gave Penning like an 86 grade. I vehemently disagray with that. Like, I just don't.
It's an 80.2. I'm looking at it.
Well,
yeah, I just don't. Run game, sure. Pass blocking, like,
that's
no,
where run game was really high.
Like, he's got issues, and I think they got to figure him out. I would be incredibly surprised if Penning plays week one, just based on what we've seen. I just don't think you can do it yet. Yeah. They tried to give him every opportunity. They were careful with the situation not to rattle his confidence. And I think all that stuff was important. They gave him the best opportunity to succeed here. I think he needs a little bit more time. And like I said, there is some improvement. It's just simply not enough.
Nick, there's a position group that I don't feel like we're talking enough about, and it's really becoming a concern. And I'm sure that you've covered it from every angle. That's receiver, and not just like the third receiver anymore. I think it's everybody behind Chris Olave, because Rashid Shaheed just hasn't been out there. We've seen A.T. Perry flash, St. Brown flash in this game. Stanley Morgan played okay, but if you're counting on Stanley Morgan, no disrespect, I think you're in trouble. Where are you right now with the receiver room? Because I think there's major concerns.
Yeah, worried about that one too. I mean, look, the skill positions across the board with this team, I think they're one injury away from that kind of being the Jenga block that kind of crumbles things. And if you take out one of the top 2 receivers, if Juwan Johnson isn't good enough, if Alvin Kamara goes down, I mean, just across the board, I think you're in a lot of trouble really quick. I don't like the receiver room at all. I never did. I thought they needed a third guy the whole offseason. That was kind of on my must list. It was tackle and receiver. I don't think they ever answered that question. Shaheed missing all this time, I think, is a really bad thing, because as talented as he is and his ability to get open is great. Like, if you really go back and watch like his route running, like from last year, like I don't think it was where it needed to be. Coming out of his breaks and that, a lot of stuff's like rounded and sloppy and not necessarily on time. And this is a very on time system. It's pure progressions. It's 3-step drop, get the ball out when your back foot hits, and the guy has to kind of be there on schedule for everything to work as it's supposed to. And that's not how it's, went with him in the past. So that's big to me. I think Shaheed's probably gonna have a good year, but like just missing this time, I think is a setback and maybe slows you down beginning of the season. I don't like it though. Like the third guy being Cedric Wilson, that's not a great situation. I like Cedric as a fourth. Like I would like it much better if A.T. Perry was that third guy. I think Perry ultimately makes it on the team, but I think that's a discussion they're having seriously, last night into today, which guy's the last receiver to make it. I think they're going to have to keep Mason Tipton on the team. Just in terms of if you cut him, I think someone's taking him. That was a guy when they signed him. I heard from 3 different teams. They were like, man, that's the guy. Like they were trying to get him. Wow. He ended up being, one of the higher paid rookie guys. If he gets cut, someone's going to pick him up. So I think he probably gets stashed on the team somewhere just because he truly is one of those guys that you can't sneak through. We like to use that phrase. He's one that I think really could get claimed. But I don't like the group. But St. Brown probably, I think is someone that's like doesn't make the team, but hey, stick around. You're on the practice squad and you get elevated the first 2 weeks of the season, and then maybe he cycles up onto the roster. But yeah, it's not a great group. There's a lot of great 5 and 6 guys. There's not a lot of good 1, 2, 3.
So it's interesting then because there's some trade rumors going around today, and I'll ask you the veracity of this rumors. You said that in your absolute must needs, the Saints need a wide receiver, they need a tackle. They do neither. I mean, I guess in the draft they do get Telias Fuanga, but there seems to have been an overall kind of hesitance with the Saints this offseason, sort of going after that reset like we've talked about. Well, now there's rumors that the Texans may be shopping around John Mechie as they have an incredible receiving core where he's actually buried pretty deep there. Given the Saints' actions up to this point, how realistic is it that they would give up future draft capital to bring in Mechie this late in the game?
What kind of capital?
I don't know. What do you would have a better idea of like what the Texans would be asking for?
Is another 6 foot, 180 pound guy the answer? Like like they got a lot of those. There's a bunch of them around. Like at this point, like numbers are great. Like if you can add them, great. I would kind of hate to see him trade, anything meaningful draft wise for that. It just feels like he's another clone of what they kind of already have. But like if you got to go all speed, ready show on turf, like go ahead. Like it's better than what they have now. But I don't think they're going to be aggressive in trying to do anything like that. I mean, I think tackle is probably more of a likelihood of a potential trade. I think running back something that could maybe be more of a potential trade. If the right opportunity presents itself, sure. But I don't think this team's really in the position to trade away future assets for current glory. Like I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Like it's just that was months ago. Like when you were on that path. And my biggest pet peeve with the building of this team is kind of like, why isn't there that other tackle? Like, why isn't there that Andrews Pete level player? Like, if Pete just wanted to leave, great, let him go. But like, this was something that should have been done a long time ago. At this point, it's just kind of like you are what you are. I wouldn't want to give up too much for another 6 foot guy. Like,
so you would rather
right now, but like if it's not long term, what's the point? Like,
right.
6'3" possession
so
guy.
Like
sure,
Tim Patrick, if he got released by the Broncos, Tim Patrick 6'4". 215 reports are he's probably going to get released because they haven't been able to find a trade. Like you're looking for something more in that mold.
Yeah, something that's just a little bit, different. That gives them something that they're missing. And I would be more willing to give up an asset for somebody that's kind of part of like a long-term, like if you're long-term for wide receivers, Olave, Shaheed, like get me another piece that like fits in that and finishes it instead of like, let's just carbon copy the same guy 3 times.
Does Kendre Miller make this team? Interestingly, in yesterday's analysis, you, Triplett, and Thomas all saying no.
He's a hard cut. All I can do is go off of, everything we've seen and heard, even just publicly.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like he's somebody that's going to be on the team. I think they're kind of fed up with it. He is injured, so like maybe it's an IR thing, and you go that direction and you try to bring him back later. I'm on the show every week. You guys heard me all offseason talking about how much I love Kendre's fit in this system. I like the Saints significantly better with him on the team. I like Kendre's talent. I like Kendre's talent coming out of college. But I think there's a lot of frustration with how the injury stuff's been handled. Going back to last year, he had the knee injury with the draft. I think the length of time it took to rehab that was frustrating. Then he had the injury in the season. I think the length of time it took to rehab with that was frustrating. Then there's another injury now, and I think it's more about the accumulation of frustrations more so than it is like any current event that's happening right now. But I think they're just frustrated maybe with how he rehabs.
Well, okay, and that's kind of what I want to dig into a little bit, because injuries are injuries, right? So what is Kendre Miller doing to kind of increase that frustrations? Because it's like, just trying to hypothesize. Okay, a hamstring day one, first individual drill. That could be awful luck, but are the Saints saying that they believe that he didn't come in ready? Like that his body wasn't ready to handle the rigors? Is it about him not approaching? Is he skipping rehab? Like, because injuries suck, and a lot of times they can be bad luck. But what about these injuries is making the Saints so angry with Kendre Miller?
I don't know specifically, but I think you can just look at how some of the injuries are talked about and how his injuries talked about.
I agree.
There's a significant difference. It's not like DA's up there pissed off at everybody that's hurt. It's one guy. Like, so it seems like there's something there, overall that they feel like isn't happening the way it's supposed to be happening. And this was probably like the line in the sand moment. It's a weird situation. Like we saw him out there rehabbing a little bit out in California, come back and, haven't really seen much. Like now that might be happening just at a different time of day outside our eyes. Maybe there's a different protocol now that they're back home and they're able to do different things to where like we aren't seeing them. So I don't know, but like it doesn't feel like he's like close or on the horizon. I can't remember the last time I saw him, honestly. I think it was in California. It's just, it seems like they're incredibly frustrated with him. And I hate it because this run scheme, like we saw some of it in this last game, like it just seems like a guy that's explosive with speed, young legs, no mileage on him. Like,
yeah,
with this would be really, really exciting. And I think a young runner kind of brings life to an offense in a way that maybe like no other position does. Like when you have a guy that's like new, fresh, and good at that position, it just changes things. And I thought that was going to be it with him. I don't like the running back room without him. I like it with him. I don't really feel great about anybody. Alvin obviously being Alvin, but outside of that, like I don't feel good about anybody else. And if Kendre's like there and he's good and he's healthy and he's what he's supposed to be and he's pushing Alvin, I think that's how this offense goes to the next level. Without him, like, I don't know. You're one injury away from it being an absolute disaster.
Nick, I want to ask you about Jordan Howden, because you bring in Justin Simmons here in training camp. Maybe you were going to sign him, didn't work out. He goes to the Falcons. Okay, but obviously he plays the safety position. And then also you look at this last game, Jordan Howden plays 36 plays. There wasn't any other starter out there. There was a lot of guys that average fan wouldn't even know who they are. Why does Jordan Howden play 36 plays in this last preseason game? Why do you bring in Justin Simmons? I thought Howden was a player they really liked. That's why you move on from Marcus May.
Yeah, it's funny. Like end of last season too, they had them injuries, and then like it ended up being Abram playing more snaps. Like for whatever reason, there's something here where they haven't been able to like fully commit to him as the guy at that position. And I feel like this whole offseason was kind of about like keeping pressure on his neck a little bit, and they were trying to like push him to get something more out of him. I think come week one, he ultimately is the guy that plays the most snaps. I'm going to actually be interested to see if Abram makes the team. Like I think it's a conversation between him and Udo right now about who ends up making it. Kool-Aid's injury, I think maybe you need that guy that can play a little bit more at cornerback. So that's going to be fascinating to me, but I think that's a spot that's, it's another one. Like it kind of feels like it's just left a little bit of a hole open there. And it's something that worries me a little bit, but I think if Abram's out there and he's playing, like that limits what you can do with Tyron. And if you can't move Tyron all over the place and he has to be, the deep safety every single play, like that takes away kind of from what makes Tyron a good player. So you got to find that right blend. Will Harris, obviously another option. I was pretty unimpressed with him overall throughout. I think he's someone that should make the team, but like as a starter, I don't love him. I love him as a rotational player. Howden though, like it just never felt like there were any big moments in camp. Like it just kind of felt like it was like right there on the cusp, and it never quite got all the way there. I mean, that's probably the one area of concern with the defense, I think.
Breaking news here, Nick. Mike Triplett of neworleans.football reporting that Lou Hedley has been released by the New Orleans Saints. So
okay,
we'll let you go, as I know you got a big day. You got a lot to get to. Again, guys, neworleans.football is the place to be today. Keep up. Well, I mean, really all season long, but especially today, it's going to be a flurry of news and activity. Nick, thank you so much, my friend.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.